I would like to invite Rabbi Oded Mazor, who is on the formal note part of the Maram, which is the Council of the Reform Rabbis in Israel, but also one who has done action in terms of the challenges against COVID-19. Thank you very much for agreeing to speak to us, Rabbi Mazor.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate. I would like just to start with adding another sentence to the last topic of caring about the rest of the world. And I think caring for the rest of the world as a joint endeavor of all religious leaders is very important. We must start with not standing aside and taking care as the State of Israel of our neighbors in the Palestinian Authority. And I'm very honored to also be part of Rabbis for Human Rights who have joined in calling the government of Israel to supply vaccinations to the Palestinian Authority. These are our neighbors in this land and we must take care of them. But my main topic today is the act of prayer. The act of prayer contains within it several different components. The prayer of the established religion, and certainly the public one, is first and foremost worship. But because there is liturgy formulated and shaped by human beings, it also has a declarative and educational component. This is our faith, this is our way, this is our perception of our place as human beings and how we deal with a given reality. This is true not only for those who show creativity and innovation in prayer and its formulation. Not to change anything in prayer is, in face of shaky events in reality, is in itself a religious statement. In the Reform movement, since its inception a little over 200 years ago, the accuracy and updating of the wording of the prayer, conceptual editing and verbal accuracy have been a central axis and a defining one. There are many examples of this over the years. The corona plague and its health and social consequences have created a need for responses of various kinds to the new reality. Questions of using technology, redefining the Kehillah, the praying public, and creating a community have occupied all the world's religions for the past year and 8 months or so, certainly all Jewish streams. Again, even those who have chosen to answer immediately with the answer of nothing changes. In Reform Judaism, as part of the constant preoccupation with the content of prayer, the corona raised the need to examine the way in which we would also relate to it in our prayer. The Reform movement in Israel also published a new Israeli Reform prayer book, Sidur Tfilat Adam, during this period. So with practicing liturgical wording was placed before our eyes and our hearts. A first example of this is a special emphasis given to all the words in the prayer that deal with illness and cure in anticipation of recovery. Every Friday night on Kabbalat Shabbat, we sing a centuries-old piyut called Yedid Nefesh with the words Ana el na refana la, based on Moshe's prayer for his sister Miriam to recover. In the days of the corona, this sentence was given special intention, focused on the hope of all to be cured. Another example is the verse from Psalm 92, Od yenuvun beseivad shenim vera'ananim yiyu. They will bear fruit even when they are old, full of sap and freshness. This was emphasized in a different and very strong way in the many months in which we cared for the older generation in our communities and throughout the world. I want to share here a number of prayers in the order in which they appeared, an order that reflects the struggle of all of us with the corona, the social, medical, community process we went through. In our community, Kol HaNeshama in Jerusalem, the first need that has been answered by a new prayer is the need to express our deep concern and great appreciation to all the medical men and women who have stood at the forefront of the fight against the virus and saving lives. Rabbi Ayelet Cohen from New York, a conservative rabbi, composed a prayer that was translated into Hebrew by Rabbi Noah Satat, a Reform rabbi and member of our community here in Jerusalem. So this is a prayer that we added in the special prayers section after the Torah reading on Shabbat morning, blessing all the different people who are involved in taking care of our health and fighting for it. And as it says here, bless them in their coming home and bless them in their going out. Ease their fear, sustain them. Another need that arose with all the isolations and closures, and then also the hybrid reality we kind of got used to live in for a while, in which part of the community is in the synagogue and some of the members of the community are at home, was simply to acknowledge that we are together, yet in different spaces. Not to ignore, but to give expression and allowing those who are in the house to aim for their home to be a place of prayer. These verses from the book of Numbers and from Psalms are usually recited at the entrance to the synagogue. And the variations we created on these verses meant to sanctify the moment and create the prayer space in the house. So not just to saying, how goodly are thy tents, O Jacob, thy dwellings, O Israel, as we enter the synagogue, but also for those praying from at home with us on Zoom, to say, how good is my tent and my dwelling? How good are our tents? When the vaccines came, there were also the dilemmas that I assume, and I even hope, that in spite of all that was said here before, we all experienced. Even those who completely trust the health authorities in Israel and around the world are likely to have experienced at least minutes of thinking and debating whether it is completely possible to trust, whether there is no risk to themselves and to their loved ones. There is a proverb in Arabic that says, Al-Subhani lima bighlat, only God is not wrong. It is a sentence said to allow us, the human beings, to err and to acknowledge that it is entirely human. This means that even a well-considered decision may turn out to be wrong in retrospect. Most of us have decided, as many areas of our lives, to trust the wisdom, the experience, and the good intentions of the professionals and go get vaccinated. Still, apprehension has accompanied many people. And formulating a prayer for this moment has the function of giving apprehension a place, expression and release, recognizing it as legitimate and trying through the possibility of praying in this moment of receiving the vaccination to strengthen the minds of the people being vaccinated. So as you can see, using verses and blessings and asking, may this act be for life and not for death, for a hug and not for distancing, for hope and not for despair, for cure, comfort, and good days. For you are the ultimate healer. Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, healer of all flesh and source of wonders. As the controversy over vaccines became more complex and painful, and the pressures on both sides grew, so did the need to articulate this complexity. We do not know how we will continue to live with the corona and for how many more years it is with us, but we will no doubt socially bear the social difficulties that arose between those who trust the medical system and those who doubt it, between those who trust science and those who see the whole occurrence as conspiracy with hidden motives. The last prayer is meant to express concern for the well-being of our society in the face of this social rift, to remind us that beyond the pandemic and its physical harm, there are also interpersonal, family, and community relationships that we must work together to maintain even in the event of disagreement. Tolerance and pluralism are positions that are much harder to adhere to when it comes to decisions with implications for human life. Precisely because of this, even in a community that has largely been vaccinated and completely adheres to the government health regulations, it is important to me to lead a value-based, religious, and social line of recognition of our freedom of choice as human beings and mutual respect between us. And I also tend to think that this openness and the recognition that a prayer could create might bring people out of the corners that they might be pushed into by the existing social pressure. So I would like to read it now.
I think that we don't have time.
Okay, so I won't read it now, but you can read it as I say my last sentence. Our role as religious leadership is to maintain the physical, mental, and social health of our communities and wider society. And I believe and hope that prayer, both as a public worship and in addressing personal and community challenges and fears, can strengthen us in all these aspects. Toda rabba. Thank you very much.